let's take a look at how to learn the verbs with prepositions by heart. So if you see this, again, if someone thinks of something, it has nothing to do with where something is and when something is. Yeah, thinking happens out of space and time. Yeah, in the void. So it makes no sense. You have to learn by heart that an follows denken if you want to say what you're thinking about or of. So you only have to remember denken is married to an. How do you do that? It's very simple. There's only one sentence you have to actually remember, and that's the following. And if you see the sentence, you can close your eyes for not too long, but I will keep speaking so you can still hear me. And imagine what you read there. Give that a try. I'm thinking of anchovy. If you don't know what anchovy is, it's a very intense tasting little fish that some people like to put on their pizza. I'm not a big fan of that. But it's very memorable. Even if you're vegetarian, you should at least try, so you will not forget thinking of is in German used with an. And you see the anchovy, I've highlighted the an. So you remember thinking is married to anchovy. So you see, you don't even have to remember the German word for thinking. You just know next time or whenever it's time for you to learn the word thinking in German, denken, that it's married to anchovy. So denken an. It comes naturally. It's a beautiful mnemonic. And mnemonics are especially for these cases. And yeah, not for much more, but for this they do a beautiful job. So here's a little image. There's a lady thinking of an anchovy. I actually don't know what the singular of this. Maybe it's anchovy. So it's a salty fish, if I remember. So this technique, it's a sweet mnemonic device, as they call it. You will learn in my online course. Yeah, there's nothing, I will not go through more examples here. I want to keep it short. It's also something that is only relevant to you in the moment you come across these. In my course, I give you such pre-made images like anchovy for the most common prepositions and verbs with prepositions. So you could learn them if you wanted in 2-3 hours over a weekend easily. And then you're done with it. Yeah. Then you have to practice them. Practice is another thing. So the next pain point, after you've learned the preposition that belongs to the verb, or after you've already figured out, okay, it's either where or when, or it's random, is the cases. Which case do you use with which preposition? Here we have a couple of easy ones, accusative and dative. Those are always reliable. So once you see aus on the right, for example, aus, you know it's always dative, no thinking required. And again, what I'm talking about now, I'm talking about grammar, but the more important thing here is using the grammar intuitively. Talking about and thinking about grammar or grammar rules is fine to communicate, to understand something more deeply. But in daily practice and in becoming fluent, you have to get over that. You cannot think in grammar rules or grammar terms. You simply want to feel like, ich komme aus der Schule. And if someone says, ich komme aus die Schule, you feel like shrugging. Yeah? So you get a feeling for what's right and what's wrong. And that's the beauty of this. So in Smarter German, you learn how to intuitively get these things inside your memory. And the other thing is memorizing things. Very easy, no problem. You can memorize lots of stuff, especially with these mnemonic tricks. I've done that when I was 18 years old, and 10 years later, even I had a little phase where I memorized binary numbers for whatever reason. I couldn't do that again, but the problem is not memorizing things. The problem is with language learning is recalling them. So you have to recall them. You have to memorize them in a way that allows you to easily recall them and quickly recall them. So that's why mnemonics have a very limited use, but in this case, they're very, very helpful. So whenever you have these, once you've learned them, and by the way, you saw a video in the beginning, if you were early, I have 2 songs, and the third one is coming. I have an accusative preposition song on YouTube. I have a dative preposition song on YouTube, and soon we have the 2-case preposition one, those in the middle. That will come maybe in 2-3 weeks' time. Who knows? But those can help you to internalize them and associate them emotionally with the cases. Yeah, check them out and give them a thumbs up. Yeah, always helps, by the way. So the painful ones, the painful 2-case prepositions. They're still standard prepositions, and I give you a rough overview or insight when they actually want to be with accusative and when with dative. But they're hassle because you have to make a decision. Decisions are a hassle. Yeah. So, for example, and again, I have a whole masterclass about these and about what I just show you now in 2 minutes. I will not go into too much detail. It's important for you that you understand that if these are just normal prepositions, and they are about a place or a time, direction obviously is about a place, then they go with accusative. Now, the difference between accusative, so the question in German would be wohin. Unfortunately, that question doesn't help you much if you translate it into English. I'll get to that once I open the next slide. So if there's a position, they require a dative. Yeah. People confuse this very often. So let me give you the question. So wo. Teachers often say you just have to ask wohin and wo. The problem with wohin and wo is they both translate as where. Where do you go? Wohin gehst du? Where are you? Wo bist du? Yeah. Of course, you could ask, where are you going to? Or where to are you going? Even though that might be bad English, but nobody does that. So it's always a bit tricky to work with wohin and wo. I personally don't like that much, but if it works for you, I'm happy to have that here. More interesting is this whenever there's a movement, a direction. Yeah, and a direction means something or someone moves from point A to point B. That's a direction. It's like an arrow. That's why it's an arrow. Then you need accusative, action, accusative. You see the relation, right? There's an action of movement. And if it's a position, you see the target as an O. It's something that doesn't move. Dative is static. So this is just the rough differentiation. People get confused, and I get to that in a couple of slides, because they think you can always ask wohin and wo, or think of direction and position, but as you already have seen, that's not always possible. But we get there. So what do we do with these? Yeah, like when we have verbs with prepositions, this is when you cannot ask wo, wohin, when it doesn't make sense, there's no time, no place involved. What do we do? When do they take accusative and dative? Yeah, for example, if you have, let me see, ich denke an meine Mutter, I'm thinking of my mother, you cannot ask where am I thinking? Yeah, or where to am I thinking? That doesn't work. So, but it's a 2-case preposition. It's an. So which one does it take? And you see it's on the left. So it takes obviously accusative. How do I know that? Well, I grew up with it and I had roughly 48 years of practice. And but there's a trick to that as well. Yeah, you've had one mnemonic already. The other one is coming. It's a very simple one. It's so mind-blowingly simple. Yeah, so the wohin doesn't work. And that's actually a cute thing. Let's say we have vor, and you see it's on the dative side. So ich fürchte mich vor, I'm afraid of. And here vor normally is in front of. It doesn't make any sense. So it's one of those verbs with prepositions, to be afraid of. And you have to learn that vor is married to fürchten. And you cannot ask, where am I afraid of? Yeah, you could, but it wouldn't make any sense. So wo doesn't help. Well, I thought I had a little more surprise here. So they're actually pretty easy. I think the other slide comes later. It's pretty easy. If you have the situation of a verb that requires a specific preposition, and it happens to be one of those that cannot decide between A and D, 90% of those, if not more, use the accusative, and only 10% use dative. And that already should tell you something, especially if you know how I work. Yeah. In case of doubt, you choose A, accusative. And that rule actually goes throughout your German learning experience. If you don't know whether something is accusative or dative, it's always accusative. And you are wrong in 10% of the cases. But come on, if a lottery had that high a chance, you would play every day. So why not play the German case lottery? Even if you see another preposition and you haven't learned it yet that it's with a certain case, go for accusative. It's the major case in German. Yeah, especially with prepositions, there's only those two cases. The genitive ones, it's a fly that wants to learn German. The genitive ones you can ignore. Genitive is dead. Yeah, that comes in C1 and B2. You will find it. It's fine. And there are no nominative prepositions, unless I'm very, very mistaken. And it's a wonderful, miraculous exception. But nominative is just used with the subject and therefore and similar things. So it makes no sense to create a preposition for that. So, of course, you could learn those verbs with prepositions. I actually didn't change the title. That go with the dative. Yeah, the 10%. Why not? The 90% are clear. So you learn the 10%, and those are actually really limited. You can really learn the 10%, and then you're done. And everything you haven't learned is, of course, then the accusative. Very simple. It's more difficult to learn the 90%. Why would you learn 90 words if you could learn 10 words and be fine with it? Here are just a few. Let me translate a few to tell you or to show you how rather rare they are. Some of those will come in B1, of course. Yeah, B1, B2. Yeah, erkennen an, to recognize by something. I'm afraid of something. Leiden an means to suffer from. Das liegt an, that's caused by. Sich schützen for, to protect oneself from something. Sich sorgen to worry about something. And teilnehmen an is to participate in something. So they are B1-ish. Yeah. So these are 7 of the list I share in my course. Easy to learn. And I would learn them not now as a list. I would just wait until they come into your life and happen naturally. And then you use the mnemonic technique that I showed you before. So you could learn those 10% or those 7 that I found here, or you simply ignore that. Just use the accusative in that case. So let me repeat. This problem here only occurs with those prepositions that do not make sense, that do not tell you anything about a time or a place. Yeah. And then the case is actually no problem. It's always accusative. Done. So simple. Doesn't get simpler. Good. Yeah. 2 case prepositions and dative. Yeah. So this is a rough overview. That's actually pretty quick. 34 minutes. A few bonbons. Yeah. A few bonbons. So sometimes prepositions like to dress up or hide. You see here these words on the left, am, im, zum, zur, beim, and somehow they seem familiar, somehow they seem altered, and some people struggle to see the original preposition. So can you actually, do you already know? If you don't know, don't worry about it. Do you know what am actually stands for? Yeah, all these words are actually contractions of 2 words. So there's 2 words that we merge together to save time and energy. Germans like to save time and be efficient, right? Okay, there's a couple of already advanced German learners. So you keep sharing all of these. Is short for an dem. And you see here's an. And dem gives away there's a dative. You learn that in the course. Don't worry about it now. But dem can only be dative. Yeah? And you learn that as you go. Don't worry. And of course, then you can see im is also in and dem. And you see everything that ends in m might probably be related to dem, the dative. Zum, zu dem. Zur is new. Zu der. Question is, I forgot one, that's nice. Question is, what case is there? But it's, if you have paid attention, or have learned the dative prepositions with my songs already, or somewhere else, you know, zu is always dative. Yeah, so it's also dative. And beim, of course, is by dem. So as simple as that. So if something looks like a preposition and just has a little M or R at the end, it might be one. Or very likely is one. Now, on the right, you see a couple of more colloquial ones. Vorm, hinterm, nachm, mitten, You will hear that Germans actually contract a lot of this. Yeah. Der Computer steht vorm Bett. Oder der Garten ist hinterm Haus. Nachm Essen treffen wir uns. Ich fahre mitten, ist eigentlich mitten with a P. Mitten Auto. And the we talk about in a minute. So mitten is difficult to pronounce. Ich fahre mit dem Auto, mitten. So that is very colloquial. You never write this, and you will never see this written unless someone writes a text message. Yeah, and text message we love shortening things. Now, what's with the Yeah, vorm is vor dem, hinterm is hinter dem, nach dem, mit dem. What's with the What is short for? Anyone? It's a little bit of an advanced question. Let's see who is an advanced learner. Take a risk. Question mark. That's a very good answer. Nichts. Und dem. I like that, Milan. That's creative thinking. Yeah? I actually really like that. I think we should take this over. Ist keine Ahnung, it's a preposition. Exactly. I have an empty slide. Ist isn't short for anything. And the same, by the way, is, I like this one, for. Yeah, it looks as if it was a contraction of von and der, but it's not. For is already in front of, it's taken, so it's not a contraction at all. Yeah, I forgot that here, but is as good as that. So keep that in mind. Sometimes the preposition is comes with a little tail. Just to make you aware, there are a couple of double gangers that look like prepositions, and in a way that helps you to remember them, but they might confuse you. This is based on a couple of questions that I got over the years. So prefixes. That's something that's fixed in front of something else. Yeah. No? Lavia, no, for is for. It's just in front of. There's no change. Didn't cut that. So these prefixes, they come with a verb. They are married. They're not even married to them. They are Siamese twins. So you cannot really separate them, at least not far. So if you look at this, there is 6 variants of gehen. There's actually possibly 15 of gehen variants of that. In other languages, you have similar occurrences. Yeah, angehen, ausgehen, abgehen, vorgehen. These all have different meanings. Angehen, etwas angehen could mean to start something. Ausgehen means to go out. Abgehen means something goes off from the wall. Let's say the paper goes off, the tapestry goes off the wall. Vorgehen, to advance or to proceed. Pro is kind of forward as well. Nachgehen, to kind of pursue something, to go after something. Mitgehen, to go with something or someone. So you see, they kind of, in English you need prepositions for these, but in German, these are just glued to the main core verb, and they change the meaning of things. In this case, very often, and it can cause trouble. Yeah, gehen means to walk, to go. If you have something like abgehen, to go off the wall, you cannot, nobody is walking off the wall. Yeah, so you need a little bit of creativity and fantasy here. But as English has very similar meanings here with gehen, you'll be fine. Yeah. Another problem that especially beginners always have is that they see a zu everywhere. Zu is a very common little tiny word, also in English. And there is a grammar topic called infinitive with zu. So, and it's a specific topic. I will not go into detail. It's very often close to English, but in certain cases not. So you need to learn when to use it, when not. It's usually after a certain expression like, I got no time to see my mother. And you see in English, you also would say to see, not to sees. So it's also, it's very similar in this example. And zu, if this was a preposition, it would actually be followed by a dative. And it would be followed by a pronoun or a noun. What that is, if you don't know it yet, ignore, it's fine. A noun is usually a word that's capitalized, like house or car or Michael. Yeah, Michael is written with a capital M because I'm a noun. It's a name. Noun is just a fancy word for name. So sehen is written with lowercase s, so it's not a noun, and therefore zu cannot be a preposition. So here it's just part of this grammar phenomenon called infinitive with zu. So be careful with this. Yeah, and you see meine Mutter, I highlighted it blue. Blue means it's the accusative. And you can see the E, oops, the E is also a sign for that. Okay, so this is a problem for some people. We can actually move on. And to make that very clear, none of the prefixes nor the zu in front of an infinitive change anything in the sentence. They don't change the case. Yeah. It's simply it doesn't get simpler than that. Don't change anything.